High drama at the Oscars.
La La Land.
The favourite seems to win Best Picture, but then this.
There's a mistake. Moonlight, you guys won Best Picture.
Hollywood's big night descends into farce with muddled red envelopes and even redder faces. Also tonight, underway at last, the long-awaited inquiry into historical child abuse. The little girl who died of an asthma attack just hours after a doctor refused to see her. Her family demands action. And why the cost of insuring your car is set to soar.
This is the ITV Evening News with Mary Nightingale.
Good evening. It was a plot twist worthy of any Oscar-winning movie. But last night's mix-up over the winner of Best Picture was all too real. It began when the wrong envelope was handed to the presenters. Warren Beatty and Faye Dunaway read it, and the producers of La La Land stepped up to accept the coveted award. But they had to abandon their speeches and surrender the golden statuette to the real winners, Moonlight, and all in front of tens of millions of viewers. Here's our arts editor, Nina Nana, on how the real Oscars showstopper.
And the Academy Award.
Presenter Warren Beatty clearly knew on seeing the winner's card that something was wrong.
For Best Picture.
You're impossible. Come on. La La Land.
No surprise there. It was the night's front runner with 6 wins already. But the real blockbuster was yet to come.
And the Hollywood in the hearts and minds of people everywhere.
Midway through the acceptance speeches, people are scurrying across the stage.
And the humanity.
I'm sorry. No, there's a mistake. Moonlight, you guys won Best Picture.
Moonlight won.
This is not a joke.
This is not a joke. I'm afraid they read the wrong thing.
This is not a joke. Moonlight has won Best Picture. Moonlight, Best Picture.
Chaos ensued in the auditorium and backstage.
It was really beautiful.
Wait, Moonlight's won Best Picture. Moonlight won Best Picture.
Whoa, we have a little...
Oh my goodness, Warren Beatty apparently read the wrong name. This is incredible.
The Moonlight cast hugged each other in disbelief at a blunder watched by thousands in the room and many millions at home.
Still a great night, though, Adnan. Still a great night.
Yeah, no doubt, but this is shocking.
Even in my dreams, this could not be true. But to hell with dreams. I'm done with it, because this is true. Oh, my goodness.
Warren, what did you do?
It actually wasn't Warren's fault. He and fellow presenter Faye Dunaway were simply given the wrong card to read out. PwC is the accountancy firm in charge of counting the votes and creating a full list of winners. 2 duplicate sets of winners' cards and envelopes are produced. And 2 of the firm's partners, Brian Cullinan and Martha Ruith, are the only people who know the results prior to the ceremony. They stand at either side of the stage, each with a set of cards, and hand out the winning envelope to the presenter. Instead of handing the Best Picture card, it seems Warren Beatty was handed the duplicate card of Best Actress, which had previously just been announced. The stagehand, here in the headset, can be seen checking the card and rushing off.
Good night. Thank you so much.
Minutes after getting their Oscars, eventually, the Moonlight team said the moment had been rather overshadowed.
I don't want to go up there and take anything from somebody, you know, and it's very hard to feel joy in a moment like that.
The folks from La La Land were so gracious. I can't imagine being in their position and having to do that.
Moonlight has won Best Picture.
The manner in which the La La Land producers snatched the card from Beatty's hand suggests they weren't happy, and who can blame them? After a night of relatively few surprises, the jaw-dropping finale provided the Oscars with surely its most embarrassing moment ever. Nina Nana, ITV News.
Well, later in the programme, we'll be looking at other toe-curling moments when award shows get it badly wrong.
Miss Universe 2015 is...
Plus, we'll be revealing how social media has had a field day with Hollywood's humiliation. And to find out the other real Oscar winners from last night, go to our website, itvnews.com/news. Moving on now, the much delayed and much criticised inquiry into historical sexual abuse finally got underway today. The inquiry has been dogged by problems since it was first set up in July 2014. It is already on its fourth chairwoman and its scope has been denounced for being too wide. It will examine abuse in churches, schools and council institutions across England and Wales. As Jokaria reports, it opened by hearing how thousands of British children who were sent to Australia were systematically abused.
A shameful period of British history is how it's been described, when thousands of children were shipped out to Australia on a false promise of a better life, many terribly poor or in the care system. Instead, they endured systematic sexual, physical and emotional abuse, which was widespread.
He's got bare feet.
David Hill was separated from his mother at 12 and sent to live on a farm called Fairbridge, where he was subject to public floggings, used as slave labour and starved.
The moment I remember most was the first night. I remember going to bed and feeling a crushing loneliness.
But he believes others suffered far worse than he did.
Most of these other little kids, as young as 4, spent their entire childhood without a loving arm around them, without any nurturing, any love, any encouragement, any real care, and they were the ones that were the most abused.
And he wants more than recriminations. He wants the truth.
Name the villains. They might be beyond the grave and therefore beyond the law, but let's blacken their names for what they did.
This morning I travelled with Mr. Hill to the inquiry. He told me he believed the British government knew abuse was going on at the time it was taking place, and he wants this hearing to establish culpability.
And allowed hundreds more children to go, including me, to a scheme that they had condemned as unfit for children and was on their blacklist, and funded it, subsidised the further shipment of children to institutions that they said shouldn't be in existence.
But it'll be July before those issues will be examined, when the focus will turn to who knew what and when. Jokaria, ITV News, Central London.
The former Prime Minister, Sir John Major, has tonight attacked Theresa May's approach to the Brexit negotiations. In a speech, he called for more charm and said he had growing concerns about how the country has been told to expect a future that is, as he put it, over-optimistic. Our political correspondent Paul Brand is in Westminster. So, Paul, just how critical has Sir John Major been?
Very critical, Mary. I mean, Sir John Major is a man who famously had a lot of trouble with Eurosceptics himself in the past, and it did sound this evening as if he had quite a lot of unfinished business. It also sounded very much like a former Conservative Prime Minister criticising the current one. He said that a hard Brexit, pulling out of all of our economic arrangements with the EU at once, was high risk, that people could actually end up worse off. He said that that could threaten the union with Scotland, that it could threaten peace in Northern Ireland. And overall, he argued that the expectations were being raised to such a level that it almost sounded like fantasy.
I've watched with growing concern as the British people have been led to expect a future that seems to be unreal and over-optimistic. Obstacles are brushed aside as if of no consequence, whilst opportunities are inflated beyond any reasonable expectation of delivery. The hopes of those who favoured leaving the European Union are sky high.
Well, Sir John Major also said that Britain wouldn't be able to turn to a less reliable, less predictable America, again seemingly criticising Theresa May's closeness to President Trump. He also said that this place, Parliament, was no rubber stamp, that it had to have a proper say over Brexit. Of course, he's not the only former Prime Minister to have made an intervention in recent weeks. Tony Blair's also said that he feels people were misled over Brexit. He's implied that perhaps there should be a second referendum. Overall, though, this is the far more awkward intervention, I think, for Theresa May. MPs often say here that we are all Brexiteers now. Well, not, it would seem. Sir John Major.
All right, Paul Brand in Westminster, thank you. The Health Secretary has been accused of covering up a catastrophic mishandling of patient data. Jeremy Hunt has denied claims that patients were put in danger after hundreds of thousands of NHS records were mislaid. Letters sent between GPs and hospitals went undelivered for 5 years and ranged from blood results to cancer diagnoses. A second person has died from injuries sustained during last week's Storm Doris. Police in West Mercia say a pensioner died in hospital 3 days after the car he was travelling in was crushed by a tree in Shropshire. And a man has been convicted of stealing jewellery worth nearly £1 million from the entertainment mogul Simon Cowell. Darren February broke into the star's London home in December 2015 as he and his family slept. Now, the grandmother of a 5-year-old girl who died during an asthma attack says the doctor who refused to see her should be struck off. Ellie Mae Clark was turned away from a clinic in Newport in Wales because she was a few minutes late for an appointment. Later that night, her condition worsened and she died. Today, her family told ITV News their lives have been shattered. Paul Davis reports.
Ellie Mae Clark's family want the world to see these pictures.
Ellie went over Nanny's face.
They highlight the tragic case of a little girl who had a history of severe asthma attacks, but still loved life and brought joy to those around her. 2 years ago, after another attack, Ellie was taken to her GP's, but the doctor refused to see her. The reason, Ellie's mother was 4 minutes late for her appointment. A few hours later, Ellie died.
I think it's disgusting. She shouldn't have been turned away, no matter child, adult, anyone. That's a job, a doctor, to care and look after people. So, I'm just disgusted with her.
Dr. Joanne Rowe, who turned Ellie Mae away without even inquiring about her symptoms, was reprimanded by the General Medical Council and left the practice in Newport, South Wales. But Ellie Mae's family are horrified to discover the woman they blame for the 5-year-old's death has been allowed to practice again in Cardiff.
I think they just tried to protect her. That's how it feels.
Ellie Mae's family say a very special young life was cut short.
Very funny, very intelligent, living, just perfect.
The coroner's investigation into Ellie Mae's death is still ongoing. Dr. Joanne Rowe has refused to comment. Paul Davis, ITV News.
Are you vaccinating now?
Still to come on the ITV Evening News. The row after an MP says disability benefits should go to what he called really disabled people. And why car insurance could rise by up to £75 a year. Those stories and more after the break. Join me then. Hello again, welcome back. Downing Street has been defending plans to prevent more disabled people from accessing benefits. Courts have ruled that those with certain mental health conditions should also be able to claim personal independence payments. That's set to cost the government billions of pounds and it's planning to block it. It could be thrown out of the House of Lords, though. Here's our political correspondent, Libby Vina.
Charlie Willis suffers from depression and anxiety. He also has cerebral palsy. While his physical condition means he gets some government help, he says existing rules mean his mental health condition doesn't really count.
The initial PIP decision that I had hardly mentioned my depression and anxiety, or it didn't mention it enough for it to count towards any level of points. The entire PIP process is to do with points and the number of points that you get due to a certain criteria fitting. But lives aren't like that.
The government now stands accused of ignoring the plight of people like Charlie, ministers overturning a ruling that conditions such as dementia and anxiety should be included in claims for personal independence payments in the same way as physical disabilities, a move that would make around 160,000 extra claimants eligible at a cost of £3.7 billion by 2022. Pay up is the message from one Tory backbencher.
It's a warning that our PIP process doesn't work for people with mental health conditions as it does for physical. And we talk so much about parity of esteem. The Prime Minister wants parity of esteem. So now this gives us an opportunity to make sure the PIP process does deliver that.
Today, the Prime Minister's policy chief, MP George Freeman, was forced to apologise after saying people with anxiety weren't really disabled. In a tweet, he said he had suffered anxiety as a child and expressed regret if my comment about the need to prioritise the most serious disabilities inadvertently caused any offence, which was not intended. But would that be enough to quell backbench unrest?
He got the language a little bit wrong, a little bit loose, and he's apologised, rightly so.
But in your view, there shouldn't be a rethink?
No, in my view, the government's got this one right.
But a government defeat is still possible, as the measure has to be approved in both Houses of Parliament. Libby Vina, ITV News, Westminster.
The number of customers switching energy providers has reached a 6-year high. Latest figures from Ofgem show customers changed suppliers a total of 7.7 million times last year, and that's a rise of almost 30% on the previous year. And tributes have been paid to the father of the House of Commons, Sir Gerald Kaufman, who died last night at the age of 86. The Labour MP for Manchester Gorton held the seat for more than 40 years, and there will now be a by-election. Now, car insurance is set to go through the roof, with average premiums rising by £75 a year. Young drivers could be hit the hardest, with annual increases of £1,000. It's all the result of changes to injury payments by the government. And our business editor, Joel Hills, is here. So what's happening then?
Well, look, every year, Mary, a little short of 3,000 people have accidents so serious that their careers are brought to an end. And the government has basically changed the formula used to calculate the compensation they should receive. Changes that the insurance industry is causing crazy. And here is why. The ABI has come up with an example. It says, take a woman, for example, who's earning £20,000 a year. Imagine she has an accident and needs care for the rest of her life, costing £100,000 a year. At the old, well, the current discount rate, her lump sum compensation would be £3.4 million. Under the new discount rate that the government is going to have to introduce, she will receive £8.3 million. The result of this, the industry says, is that 36 million motorists will end up paying more for their car insurance, and not just a little more, £75 a year more, according to PwC, in the news again. Now, the Lord Chancellor says no choice here. Investment returns have collapsed since the Bank of England lowered interest rates in 2009. The lump sums have to change to provide for people, ensure they get the care they need later and throughout their life. The insurance industry is upset because of lower profits, but the government has a headache too. The bill to the NHS, an extra £1 billion a year. There's a review coming.
All right, Joel, thanks for that. And we end tonight with more on our top story, the calamitous events at last night's Oscars. Now, not surprisingly, throughout the day, it's been the source of endless jokes on social media. But as Duncan Golestania reports, it's not the first time an awards show has got it badly wrong.
When it comes to ruining someone's big moments, the Oscars are far from alone.
I have to apologize.
2 years ago, Miss Colombia lapped up her victory for more than a minute.
It's Philippines!
Before the crown was handed to the rightful winner.
This is exactly what's on the card. I will take responsibility for this. It was my mistake. It was on the card. Horrible mistake.
Today, its organisers tweeted the Oscars. Have your people call our people. We know what to do. There were the inevitable jokes about the presidential election, Donald Trump's relationship with the truth, and digs at the accountancy firm responsible for the votes. I feel sorry for anyone having PricewaterhouseCoopers preparing their taxes.
And Australia's next top model for 2010.
Of course, live TV has a habit of turning the seemingly simple into the toe-curlingly cringeworthy.
It's you, Kelsey.
just asked the host of Australia's Next Top Model.
I'm feeling a bit sick about this.
At least Amanda, Miss Philippines and Moonlight all got their prizes
This was a complete
eventually.
accident. I'm so sorry. It's Amanda. I'm so sorry.
Duncan Golestani, ITV News.
#Orcs. Right, that's all for now. Tom Bradby will be here later at 10:30 following the nightly show. But from me and all the team here on the Evening News, have a great evening. Bye-bye.